One really quick thing I wanted to ask you, especially because you talk so much about, you told us about your grandfather, you told us about your father. And so I have to ask you, the BJP is using all of that, and it's something that echoes with people. They keep throwing that at people that, look, the other parties are full of dynasts. They've certainly used it very effectively against the Congress. Why is it that it's something that the voters seem to respond to in giving advantage to the BJP in North India? But in Tamil Nadu, in Andhra Pradesh, in Telangana, this is not an issue.
Well, I again, as with everything, I have 3 or 4 answers. The first is the BJP is as full of dynasts as any other party. Tell me if that's true or not. I'll show you the graphic otherwise, right?
No, I know, but it's just that other people are not able to use it very well against them.
Number one, no, number one. Number two, I came to politics 10 years after my father died. It's not, and I was a rich man with a successful career before I came. It's not like they gave me kind of plate of opportunity when I was like 18 and fit for nothing and hadn't proven myself in the world. So there's all kinds of dynastic politics. Number two. In fact, if my father was not MLA, I would not have come because I had a better life than coming, right? Number three, I didn't want it bad enough. I didn't pay for votes. I refused to pay for votes, both the first time and second time. First time I barely scraped through by 6,000 votes or something. Second time I won by over 34,000 votes. So the people don't seem to have a problem. If you deliver the result, I mean, the first time the people voted on faith because they didn't know me, and I had come from overseas. So clearly it was my family's legacy that got me elected the first time. Second time I was explicit. I said, doesn't matter who my father was. Now I've been MLA for 5 years. Have I delivered? If so, vote for me. If not, get a better man than me or better woman than me. No problem. So that's the last thing I would say is, in fact, one of the great successes of the BJP is they have attained levels that are not seen since Joseph Goebbels of the Nazi Party. They have taken control of the narrative in a way, and basically, with their crony capitalist friends, acquired, subjugated, like brought all this media to heel, where their message, irrespective, I spoke at some forum where I said the original design of journalism or the value of journalism was speak truth to power, hold people accountable. Okay, many places that doesn't happen. The second is try to maintain some stance of neutrality. Don't go too hard at the government, but try to stance in neutrality. Okay, that's long behind us. The third is, parrot the government, but at least stop with only parroting truth and not parroting lies. We crossed that stage a long time ago. Then you come to say whatever the government wants to say, but clearly if it's a falsehood or a blatant lie, don't promote it. Now we have dudes whose day job is to parrot complete fabrications from whole cloth that the BJP's machine throws out. And it's worse than that. There are some people who I am 100% certain are acting to show they are more loyal than the king. They're not even getting instruction. They're doing it to show their loyalty, and doing it more loyal than the king. And this is like, big houses. So I think if their narrative is so powerful and so, despite it being so far from the truth, that's the point I'm trying to make. Is if it's the truth, then itself it's a big deal. But if you can make a falsehood stick, then in reality, I don't think we have seen anything since Joseph Goebbels of this scale. And somebody has to be kind of commended for it. It's not good for democracy, it's not good for society, but it takes a particular talent to do that. It's not simple to do that in a country of 1,400,000,000 people.
So is the Sri Lanka crisis, how is it impacting? How do you see it impacting us here in India? And especially you in Tamil Nadu?
Well, of course, we have great empathy. Of course, we are deeply concerned because of our historic genetic relationships. The Chief Minister has already started many initiatives, aid, food, money. We have collected a lot of things. We have promised, I think, 40,000 tons of grain. We are moving all these things right now. But I think as far as the reverse is concerned, in terms of migrants or escapees from the crisis, there we don't control those kinds of policies. Neither do we set the immigration policies, nor do we set nor do we control the Coast Guard. So the best we can do, and we did this a few weeks ago, is start preparing for an influx in terms of providing some infrastructure and some support mechanisms. I must mention that after the Chief Minister took over last year, he has already spent a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of attention on improving the lives of those living here in these camps, right? They used to be called refugee camps. He changed the name. We invested a lot. We improved the housing. We gave them all gas cylinders, gas stoves. We gave them better food. We gave them better schools. We gave them job training. So we are already kind of trying to improve the lives of those settled here. And now we're expecting some more. So we're just financially and what can I say, PWD wise, trying to get ready for if they should come. But the policies are not set by us. The policies are set by the union government. And
And speaking
and
of the
there is
policy, would that if the CAA rules were already formed, would that have impacted this?
no, because they didn't allow for these guys, right? So we asked the question: why are they only giving in the Muslim countries, majority Muslim countries? They should have included
Yeah.
Sri Lanka in this, and if they had done it, clearly it would have given a much faster path to citizenship. But that, because it was always intended as an othering rather than a genuine concern for protecting, the law was framed in a very vindictive manner, in my opinion.
So we've taken all your time. Just one last question. Are you, because a lot of people have already written off 2024 and said that the BJP looks like it's coming back. We've got 2 years to go. Are you one of them, or are you actually optimistic about it? And if you're optimistic, what makes you optimistic?
Again, I'll tell you, my job is to be finance minister of Tamil Nadu. I'm very, very comfortable. Every day I get better at my job, and I'm comfortable that I have achieved a lot relative to any of my predecessors already. And every year I will beat this. Every year I will set a new benchmark for not just the results, but improving the platform. It's my stated intent that I want to create the most professional finance department in the history of India, as good as a big bank or an investment bank would have. I'm on the path to that. I'm comfortable. We have the right team. Most important, we have the unstinting support and leadership of the chief minister. And so, we'll do that. But I don't want to duck your question. Let me say two things about it. One, a week is a lifetime in politics, right? The narrative that the BJP would like to set is that an election that is 2 years away is already decided today based on some state elections 2-3 weeks ago. I think my friend Prashant Kishore, who worked with us in the last election, was very trenchant, as he always is, and he said that election was about that election. That election is not about any other election, and the powers that we would like to have you believe it was semi-final and all. Every election is from scratch. In fact, I'll give you a statistic in a minute if you have time. But let me say the
Yes,
third point.
sure.
The third point I want to say is that what I take from the markets is that, as Keynes said, the markets can stay irrational longer than you can stay solvent. There's a corollary to that. The longer they stay irrational, the harder they correct, and the more unpredictable and instantaneous the correction. I spent 20 years in the market, so I can give you many examples. Just when you think, dude, I can't understand how this is happening, it'll go on for 2 more years. And then one day it'll whipsaw with the kind of velocity that you never imagined. And then you would have been right, but by then it's much later than you think. So anything is possible. I'll just give you one last statistic just to tell you how surface analysis can be so misleading. In my constituency, I ran in 2016. In 2019, a coalition partner ran as the MP candidate, and in 2021, I ran again as MLA candidate. All three elections, we didn't give money. 16 and 21, on principle, I didn't give money. 19, my candidate was so poor, he didn't even have a card, so he didn't have money to give. So we didn't give money. Of course, there are macro waves. In 16, we lost the overall election by 1% across Tamil Nadu, and I won it by 4%. So I say, okay, my opponent gave money, I didn't give money, I still won. 19, again, the opponent gave money, we didn't give money. But across Tamil Nadu, we won by 20% or something, or 22%. And my constituency, we won best of all the 6 MLA constituencies in Madurai MP constituency, but still not that great, not as good as the state average, but better than, much better. So in each election, the voter list shows about 2.5 lakh people, and about 1.5 lakh people came to vote. Fast forward to the 21 election, and all of a sudden I got nervous because at the last minute I heard that my opponent also, who had been planning to give money, was not going to give money. Now I panicked because in the previous two elections, at least the opponent gave money. The people, of course, some people will come to vote for money. Those people had come. And therefore, if I didn't give it, it's okay. My guys came out of love or affection or hope, and they came out of it. So the polling total was all right. It's still the lowest polling in all of Madurai district because it's only fully urban constituency. That's a different conversation in itself about the value or integrity of electoral rolls. Different story. But my big fear became that in 21 I would win, but if the voting dropped by 20 or 30,000 votes, it would be a kind of a kind of Pyrrhic victory. It would say, dude, they didn't even care about you, whatever. So anyway, we did a bunch of last minute initiatives trying desperately to get everybody to vote, all the stuff. And anyway, I should have done it, but I was very considerate. I made sure that all the polling stations had wheelchairs, and I had my own expense and all the stuff with through donors. Anyway, we did everything. Polling came out roughly the same, 1,50,000. So I breathed a sigh of relief. Then there was 1 month between polling and counting. Now we start digging into the data. And what do we find? We find that roughly 30,000 or 28,000 people who came to the booth in 2019 had not shown up at the booth in 2021. And roughly 30,000 people who had not come in 19 had come in 20. That means 20% of the electorate was a profoundly different electorate. Just think about it. How would you know? The total polling is the same, percentage is roughly the same, total voter list is roughly the same. Now we start digging into it, and we find even more discrepancies. Of the 28,000 or something people who did not come in 21, who came in 19, only about 4 or 5,000 of them had either died or moved away, or maybe 3,000-4,000 had passed away, and maybe another 6,000 or 7,000 had moved away. They had moved their vote to some other place. That means about 20,000 people who came to vote in 19 simply did not bother to come to the booth on polling day, though they were registered voters still in my constituency. Then you look and say, who are the 31,000 who came? 13,000 people were either first-time voters, they had been, not quite of age and they were now 18 or 19, or they had moved into the city and registered themselves to vote. 18,000 people were people who had been in Madurai as registered voters, had not come to the polls and came to vote. Immediately all my calculations went haywire. If 30,000 people are new, what can you say? You don't know anything, right? Now, of course, most people don't track this data. Most people track it at the booth, but they don't come back and re-enter it into the computer and cross-reference and have a database and all this stuff. So when we did this changes everything. If literally 20, even the exact, roughly the same, within few hundred votes of each other, and within half a percentage of each. So 2.5 lakh, 2.5 lakh, 1.5 lakh, 1.5 lakh. But 30,000 of the 1.5 lakh are different. It's not the same election at all. It's a completely different election. And after we got the results, and I realized that I had gone up, I had even though across Tamil Nadu we had slid a lot. The anti-BJP, anti-Modi wave of 2019 had given us a 23 or 22.5% victory at the state level. That came down to 8 or 8.5. But in my personal constituency, not only did I go from my 5 or 6 up, but also from the MP candidate 18-19, I went up to like 24% margin of victory. So now I say, what does that mean? Then I realize that most people actually do vote with their feet, as the saying goes. Very few people come to the booth and press A this year and B 2 years later. If they are enthused or if they are disgusted, they act. If they're enthused, they come and vote for you. If they're disgusted, they come and vote against somebody else. And if they're not, they just stay home. So every election is different. This notion that somehow what we saw in state elections is any kind of precursor or forerunner to 24 is, in my mind, just a fallacy. I think anything can happen in 24. Though it's not my job, I'm not planning for it, but I'm not in any way, already kind of determined the outcome or anything. Right?
Dr. Thiagarajan, you have not only explained all this really well to us, I think if other opposition leaders also heard you, I think there's so much in there for them as well. Thank you so much from both Roshan and me, and thank you for speaking to the Hindustan Times.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.